G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are pulling out the engine from the Evo and I'll be getting to work cleaning up all this engine bay, treating things like this rust here, cleaning up all of these bits and pieces and going over the wiring loom and just changing out all this crusty stuff. There's some plugs that are pretty stuffed up as well. It's just in a really bad condition, so I'm gonna go through that. But she's just about ready to come out, so I'm gonna put the camera down, undo a few bolts. I'm gonna raise the car up, and the engine should be sitting on this table that I built for this very purpose of pulling engines out of cars. Once I have that out, we'll do a full inspection of the whole engine bay and see what we need to do to restore this and get it all back to brand new OEM. Well, that was actually really easy to take out, and I gotta say, first impressions, this thing is begging for a K-swap. It just reminds me of working exactly on a Civic. Engine mount just like this on the EK, engine mount just like that on the EK. The engine is in the correct orientation for a K-swap. Only the turbo would go at the back and the intake at the front. Everything else looks like it's primed for a K-swap up in here. First impressions is this is one of the filthiest engine bays I have had in my shop. We'll go through that in just a moment. But while the engine is out here on the table, what we're gonna do is do an EXEDY clutch, clean up everything, clean up and paint the block, hopefully wire wheel or paint the gearbox. And I've got seals for both sides of the drive shafts and also the transfer case. We've got some seals that go in here. Yeah, just everywhere where that meets up to the engine. And I'm also gonna go through some of this sort of stuff that I don't believe we're gonna need moving forward. But for now, I'm gonna move this out and jump under and start to remove all the other things that I couldn't quite get to while the engine was in the way. And then I'm gonna stand back and create a plan. We have a massive bucket of bolts here, which we're gonna get over to Baz. There's a ton of upgrades to go on this. I don't think that we're just gonna paint everything and put it back together. It's gonna be stock. Ton of upgrades coming. Trust me, everything's gonna get done to this engine. It's now the next day, it's actually the next afternoon, and I've separated the gearbox from the transfer case, which I've got to go bring in. I've just been washing it. We can take a look at the clutch now and see what kind of condition it was in before. There are no stampings or markings or anything on that clutch, which leads me to believe that it's a factory clutch. However, the gearbox has been separated before, so whether or not it's blown up a gearbox or it's had the clutch replaced with like a stock style or an OEM style clutch. The reason I can tell is because this plate was already all bent up and mangled. We're gonna take that off, take all this off and get that zinc coated as well. And of course, clean up the bell housing. And I've got a whole bunch of seals all the way through on both sides for the transfer case, which was leaking. This is gonna get a full refresh. Hopefully there's gonna be no leaks, nothing like that. And don't forget, we've got that beautiful EXEDY clutch to go on here, which we'll get to later on once everything's ready to go back together and in the car. Alrighty, so we've just popped off the clutch for the first time, and you can see all of these heat spots on the flywheel. I don't know if that's normal or not. I think this is a fairly normal amount of heat spots on a performance car, but you can see that's quite uneven, and yeah, it's definitely had a couple of tough days in its life. The clutch plate has absolutely no markings on it and it's pretty well flogged, ready to be replaced. Same goes on the face side. Here you can see the factory intake manifold. Now it did have a larger throttle body on there, but it wasn't ported at all. So I've gone and just bell mouthed it a little bit. I haven't gone all the way just in case I want to put a factory throttle body back on there. This is a little bit of a before of the engine bay, just with how filthy it is, all the little rust spots everywhere. Just how filthy under the guards were. You can see on the frame rail there's a tiny little bit of damage. I'm pretty happy with that. I was pretty scared to take the side skirts off, but nothing major under there, and you can see all the little rusty spots around. These are all getting the KBS treatment and rust blasting. Well, that escalated quickly. It's been around 2 or 3 days since I last picked up the camera, and the engine bay is totally stripped. I've wire wheeled everything just on all the seams, and I've used the disc on the orbital sander and just gone over everywhere, pulled off the guards, pulled everything out. I've taken out the ABS, everything possible. I couldn't get one brake line off, so the prop valve is going to have to stay like that. I'll just brush some rust converter over the top of it. And I've unplugged the loom from inside the car. I've unplugged everything. I've popped off this case here, and for the life of me, I can't get that out. So anyway, we're just going to move on. It's probably not going to have the nicest paint just in around this little corner here, but I'll do my very best to move everything out of the way, treat all the rust, and paint where you can see. Basically, anyway, the ABS module takes up that whole area here, so it's not going to matter too much. As long as it's nice around the top, which is what you're going to see, it's going to be all right. So confident I can make that look all right without making a total mess of the engine bay. I'm going to finish rubbing it down with sandpaper by hand, and then I'm going to clean it, rust treat it with the acid wash, wash it down. Then I'm going to KBS everything. So that's the black color that I get from Complete Auto Paints in Springvale. Going to coat everywhere, just around the seams. I'm not going to do the entire engine bay with that black stuff because it might be a bit tricky, and then I'm going to have to sand it all smooth again. After that, once that's dry, I'm going to hit the underside of it and under the frame rails and in the wheel arches, just like I did in the back with the U-Pole Gravitex. This also comes from Complete Auto Paints as well. Once that's dry, then I can sand and smooth the top of the bay where you're going to see by hand, prime it, paint it, and clear coat it. And then the engine bay is ready to be put back together. I never thought I'd be doing this with this Evo, but the sheer amount of small surface rust and just the dirt, grime and dust and everything just all over the place. And I need to go through the bearings and seals on the engine, do a clutch, do all that sort of stuff, and seal up the box again. It's just easier if I took that engine out of the car. While it's out, I may as well do the bay. It's one of those things. It's spiraling out of control, but I'm actually getting through it really, really quick. I'm not too bad at it, I've got to say. This restoring cars business is pretty fun and pretty satisfying, so I'm going to get back into it. I can't remember if I picked up the camera and showed you the KBS that I did, but you can still sort of see it just under here. I've coated everything. You can see how reflective and shiny and hard wearing this is. You can mirror the wall on the other side pretty well, but I've sanded it down because this is like an epoxy sort of enamel type of stuff. It's not an epoxy because only one part, but it dries harder than a normal enamel paint. It's very, very hard and glassy. So I scuffed back everything here, especially all the areas that you're going to see. Spent a lot of time this morning. So it's now 5 o'clock. I've spent all day sanding the engine bay, and it's taken me about 45 minutes to an hour after I cleaned everything down with prep wash, of course, to paint the primer on. So I'm going to take a bit of a break now, let the primer go off, go hard and dry, and then I'm going to come out and sand this down with some 600 or 800 grit sandpaper to get it really smooth and glassy. Then I can put the paint on. But I reckon I've got the world's only non-rusty, totally rust-proof Evo 4. So I'm pretty proud of that. This is going to look awesome and epic. It is the next day. The paint has dried and we've got all the clear coat on there. It's not a perfect job for whatever reason. I think it was due to the light and painting white over a grey base. Couple of little pieces are a little bit thin. Sort of see a little bit of the grey underneath there, but that's just for me, who's a perfectionist. 99.99% of people won't even see that. The bits you're going to see are the top here, which is perfectly smooth, and the top of the guards. Where all the rust was here and here, that's all fixed up, and on all those joints has all been treated. Same as over here, there was a big rusty patch there that's been treated with a KBS and sealed up. And just every single joint pretty much had some form of rust sort of showing through there. A little bit orange. I wouldn't say like proper rust, just surface rust. But if left untreated for any longer, it would have eventually become a problem, maybe in 5-10 years time. These are the bits you're gonna see, and these are the bits that look absolutely awesome. This section was really disgusting. It had some of that silver and orange and black stuff on there as well, and it was real crusty in all of the joins. But again, it's absolutely perfect compared to what it was, and all of the surfaces that you're gonna see are brand new again. So I'm very happy with that. I'm gonna snap some photos and then I'm gonna mask it all off and get ready to do the Gravitex under here, all down there, all under through here, under the rail, and then back under the floor to match with the rest of the undercar. All the undercoating is done now, and while I've been waiting for the paint to dry, I have been building this turbo B18 VTEC for a friend of mine for the VTEC car. So Honda boys, stick around, there's heaps of that stuff coming soon. I am doing 2 projects at once, but this is all pretty well dry now. Over the next few days, I can start to put it back together in between building the Honda engine. And I'm now debating whether I paint the guards and the side skirts, because they are pretty trashed. And yeah, I don't know if I want to put it back together like that or not. Zachy boy's coming over tomorrow, and we're going to take this massive pile of stuff, including the subframe that's over there, stopping the cats getting out. I'm going to take that, sandblast it all clean with the big industrial sandblaster, and then I'm going to do the same sort of thing I did with the KBS on here and recoat everything. Haven't decided what I'm doing with these brakes yet, if I'm going to paint them a certain color or do them red. Unsure, but I've got to refurbish all the hubs and everything, and we're going to sandblast the intake plenum because I've done a little bit of port matching on that as well. So not long now, this is coming together really quickly, and it's been an absolute ton of work. So I'd really appreciate if you guys liked and subscribed, shared it around, tell all your buddies, come over. We've got Honda stuff, we've got Evo stuff, heaps of stuff happening on this channel, so don't miss out. Over here behind me, we've got the progress on the Evo. So I have gone through the loom, taken off all of that plastic conduit that was all cracked, brittle, and crusty and huge and heavy. We've gotten rid of all of that, and it's been wrapped up in this lovely tape from RACEWORKS. So they sell this in 20-meter rolls to do all of the loom, which comes out here, goes under, through there, down here, along here, and back over to where the battery will go. And we've still got the starter and everything here. That took about 30 meters worth. The rolls come in 20-meter rolls. I've got half of one left, and I'm probably going to need to get another roll or 2 because I'm going to redo the same thing on the engine loom to get that all nice as well. One thing that was an absolute game changer were these little zip ties you can see here. Now they actually plug into holes like that. You zip the loom through and then tighten it down, and then that is secured. We just sacrifice one here for the purpose of YouTube, but you guys get the idea. everything is now back to OEM Factory Plus. So we've got the nice loom. I had to actually go and learn some more soldering skills, and we've actually put on the correct plug for the indicator, and we've also done new plugs for the headlights and the parking lights because they were actually cut, twisted together with some sticky tape on there. Don't ask me why. Maybe this car had HIDs on it at one stage. Now we've got the Oxydo LEDs. We don't need to worry about those. We've gone back to the factory. Both sides were actually chopped and licked and sticked together. So we've fixed up that. I'm gonna probably change some of the pins here on the injectors. Like you can see, I don't know what this is, but we've got something bodgy going on here and some really scabby wiring there. I'm going to be fixing up the TPS. Hopefully I can just go back to using this sensor and get rid of these plugs. So we'll get rid of all of that and this crud. And I want to go and change the injector plugs if I need to. These ones here, unless I've got some adapters from RACEWORKS, but if not, we'll just change those over to the correct plugs. And as you can see, we've polished up and cleaned all of the piping for the AC. I've replaced the O-rings in there. We've got a brand new clutch master cylinder from PROTEX, and we've got a slave cylinder from PROTEX as well. So shout out to PROTEX. I know the boxes look like they're from Bilo, but the quality is OEM plus. These guys do a lot of stuff for the OEM market, and then they also sell their own stuff, which is OEM plus. So don't sleep on PROTEX, guys. It's a top quality braking brand. Masters, slaves, boosters, everything like that, brake pads. We've done some testing. We track race on them and it outbrakes everyone else in our field using these products. So I know the boxes don't have race cars and everything on them. That's the trick. If you know, you know. Grab yourself some PROTEX gear. There is some of it on the Spool Up website. For all the Honda guys out there, we'll probably move to sticking some Evo parts on there as well. One other thing I'm doing is I'm also painting the brake calipers. These are several layers. So there's etch primer, undercoat in white. We've got a base coat, which is like a maroon, sort of pinky purple glitter color. And then we have the blood red on top. Now, check this out when it gets out into the sunlight. We'll let the camera adjust. But check out how deep that is. Very nice and shiny and glittery, wet looking, but it's the clear coat. And we've got about 5 layers of paint on here, guys. So this is awesome. And we're just in the midst of doing the rocker cover now. We're up to the undercoat stage. I've got to sand that a little bit because I got a fly walk right onto it. Here you can see all of the other stuff are ready to go back on. Nice KBS painted. So KBS, guys, you need to sponsor me because I cannot sing the praises enough for KBS. The stuff is incredible. I'm going to be using it forever from now on. So hit me up, sponsor me. I want a whole rack full of it over there because I'll be using it on all of my projects from now on. Check this out. Brand new, refreshed KBS. Rust proof the whole car. KBS. Just amazing stuff. Yeah, if you're doing any kind of restorations or you just want to seal something and make sure it's totally rust proof, jump on KBS, get that stuff, guys. You can brush it on and it dries like it's been powder coated. So absolutely amazing. All of the these parts here, all KBS. Anyway, back to work. In the spirit of putting things back together, and you've seen the brake calipers all painted up. They have been cleaned, flushed out with brake fluid. You can see inside there, nice and shiny. I've done that to every single caliper. I have wire wheeled and KBS treated the booster, and I've got a new master somewhere. I don't know where it is amongst all my parts to go back on. So totally new brake system. One thing that we do need to talk about is brake lines, and I've teamed up with Safe Brake Australia. They're a local Melbourne company. I've used them on my Civic, 3 Civics actually. I'm gonna put some on Ronda eventually, next time we do a brake swap, and they're going on the Evo. So Safe brake hoses. You can find them on their online store. Just search Safe Brake on Google and they'll come up. They're the only ones in the country. And they're also all over eBay, which is where they do most of their selling. And that's where I've always bought them from. That's where I bought these from. So these are for the Evo. They are nice, shiny, silver braided brake lines with the rubber clear coating on them. So I'm gonna put those on here and also on here in the spirit of keeping moving and getting everything done on the car. So I'm going to stick those on now, show you what they look like in just a moment. It's much later in the day and I've began fitting up some RACEWORKS goodies, and I'm trying not to drill any holes in anything. So what we've got here is the RACEWORKS fuel pressure regulator. I've utilized a hole that was already there. Then we have the RACEWORKS flex fuel sensor bracket and a flex fuel sensor, just in case. I've mounted up the RACEWORKS catch can there, just a very basic bracket there, which I may revise and change later on. And I've mounted up the RACEWORKS billet bracket with the Turbo Smart 4-port Mac valve. Bit of overkill, future-proofing the build. Now the next thing and the most challenging thing so far, because we don't have an engine and we don't know where all the lines and fittings and stuff are going to go, is the fuel filters. And I've got a RACEWORKS -8 fuel filter, and I've got the factory one here. Now this one is 49 millimeters on the skinny part and 53 millimeters on the fat part there, and it lives just here in a bracket, upright like that. Now I'm hoping that the bracket has a millimeter or two to spare, because this is 51 millimeters, and we're going to try and use that same bracket just here somewhere, out of the road of everything, and it'll mean very basic fitting swap from M14 by 1.5 straight up to a -8 through the fuel filter, and then I can 90 or 45 off here and then into the fuel rail, which is going to be about here somewhere. Out of the fuel rail and then in here to the fuel pressure reg. I've got to get a gauge on here, and I've got to get a block off here as well. And then -6 out will go 90 straight into there, or maybe I can do a little bit sharper than a 90. So I reckon that that is a winner. I'm going to call it here for the night and go inside and edit some videos. The rocker cover's painted. I still have to do a little bit of finessing on that to touch up the lettering and stuff like that and give it an extra coat of clear. A bug landed in the clear, so I'm going to sand that back. Luckily there's heaps of clear on there, and then I'm going to need to clear it again anyway once I sand back the letters and numbers on the top of the valve cover. So no skin off my nose. We'll get that done and I'll show you what that looks like at a later date once I put the engine back together. All right, so while I'm waiting for the bolts to come back from Baz's, I have thrown in the T and coilovers into the front of the car, and I've put on the brand new wheel hubs, which I got from Bearing Wholesalers. Still waiting for the bolts to put those in, but those are on. The bolts here are some ones that I'm not sure where they go, so they're a little bit long, but they're just in here for now. And we've got the Safe brake hoses on, getting there slowly, looking amazing. How good is this KBS? The Bearing Wholesalers, brand new bearings. It's Japanese bearings for a Japanese car. I didn't just order some off eBay. I wanted to make sure I got some good wheel bearings that are gonna last for many, many years to come. Another 27 years, hopefully. And we've got the brand new old stock T and coilovers on there. And again, the wrapped loom all the way through. I've got to suss out the wheel speed sensors. The ones I've got are for the rear, which I needed, but now I need to find some front wheel speed sensors. Otherwise, things aren't going to be happy there. But that's going to do it for this video. I know I wanted to get everything done, but I need to put out content, I need to get stuff done, and I need to show you guys where we're up to. I'm sure you guys have been waiting a long time for it. Videos on the B18C are coming soon, but for now, next video, we will see all the subframe in, the steering rack in, everything all buttoned up and done, and all the front suspension in. I can put the brakes back together, all those bolts will be back, and I can just start to put more and more things back in the car, such as the air conditioning unit, the power steering unit, the intercooler. It's getting there, guys. We've got a brand new oil cooler coming, a brand new power steering cooler coming, larger than the ones that were on there, so they're exciting. That's coming soon. Once again, shout out to Safe Brake, Bearing Wholesalers, and Baz for all of these beautiful gold nuts and all the tips and tricks for restoring this car. Complete auto paints for the paint down here on the brakes, rocker cover, engine bay, and the Gravitex for underneath the car as well. This couldn't be possible without sponsors, people on board, people cheering me on, positivity, and you guys watching at home. So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, comment, let me know your thoughts. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, spool up, bring the boost, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.